We're here with Scott Guthrie, who the first time I saw you was at an offsite with Eric Rudder about 10 years ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
And you were just, I don't even think that you were showing the ASP.NET development plugin. Wasn't even part of Visual Studio at that point. And now you've basically taken over everything.
Well, maybe not everything, yeah,
but I mean, going from that sort of, I mean, don't you sometimes think about how were you aware of what the potential of that particular strategy and that plugin was at the time?
Well, yeah, it's been fun. I mean, it's been a fun ride the last couple of years in terms of, we've seen as .NET's matured, both on the server, but also in the client, with things like Silverlight, and then seeing Visual Studio really evolve the way it has. Where we're at today with VS 2010, .NET 4, Silverlight 4, and ASP.NET compared to where we were 10 years ago, it does seem sometimes like a different world. The nice thing though is there's a lot of continuity over the last 10 years, and so the same code that worked 10 years ago still works today. And to some extent, I think we often think of it as just sort of how do we fill in the story, and how do we kind of continue to open up new opportunities. And I think today, especially with what we showed with the Windows Phone 7, I think we got a lot of people excited about the possibilities that are provided with that, and it's great that you can use Silverlight and .NET and the same set of skills and the same tools that you already know to target it. And I think we wowed a lot of people that with not just I can use the same APIs for the productivity, but also the apps we showed. I think a couple of people commented, I want to reach out and lick them. They look so good, and hopefully that's a testament to kind of what you can build and get people excited about.
Well, the speed of development is one of the things that you were pointing out. I was particularly impressed, surprisingly so, I must admit, with how Seismic seemed to be sort of the heart of the demos in its showing how you can go. Loic made an investment in the Windows client, and then backwards leveraged it into the Silverlight client, and then opened up 3 platforms as a result. That's pretty spectacular, I thought.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do. I mean, ultimately, what we're trying to do is, how do we enable developers, to be successful on our platform using our tools. And a lot of the focus we've had around Silverlight has been primarily around consumer, and then also last year more also in the business space, where I think we've reached a tipping point where the value for companies being able to build an app and sell it, or be able to make money, suddenly very compelling. And I think both what Loic showed with Seismic, and then I think also the eBay app that was shown, that we're really excited about. It was a great example of people are choosing it because, wow, I can build an experience that my customers love. I can hit multiple devices. It runs on PC. It can run on the Mac. It can run on the phone, and the user experience isn't kind of a lowest common denominator, but it's kind of a wow experience on all the platforms. I think you're going to see more and more developers get excited by that. And ultimately, if developers can build cool apps and make money off of them, you tend to get them interested.
Yeah. I want to go back just for one more second to the original target. To me, it's ironic that ASP.NET was basically a runtime that came out of extending, and I may be oversimplifying here, but I'm going to try it anyway. It came out of extending the Ajax model, if you will, which was sort of born out of a desire to try and extend Exchange Web Services or Outlook Web Services, and that whole time frame. And at some point, you and people at that time who were higher up than you were at the time. You're pretty high up now. Somebody made a decision that this was not just a hack, but that this was something that you were going to basically turn the whole OS over time.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think part of what we've tried to do, with .NET from the beginning was, how can you build kind of this runtime that was multiple languages that allowed you to build all types of apps, server apps, client apps, mobile apps, and be able to have kind of a rich development tool experience around. A lot of the original ASP.NET predated kind of Ajax, but a lot of our kind of focus.
But it came out of that same sort of point in time where this was almost pre.NET, as a matter of fact, wasn't it?
Well, ASP.NET itself shipped with .NET, so
Right.
for the first time, and so, but we've kind of we certainly have been focused on how do you build great apps, and we tried to be very scenario focused, both on the server with ASP.NET and obviously on the client as well, and try to really work with customers and partners to figure out kind of, okay, what are the unique opportunities, what are the things that you'd find really compelling. And the great thing about an event like Mix is the fact that you get a chance not just to present to people, but more importantly get feedback and
What's the
walk
feedback
the
you're
whole way.
getting?
So far today has been great. I mean, it's
But specifically, I mean, what are the things that are interesting to you about the feedback that you've gotten so far?
I think it's the thing that's been probably the most gratifying to hear this week so far has been just the number of people that have moved from an evaluation phase to an actual I'm using it phase. And so it always amazes me when I talk to often enterprise customers. And really before Silverlight 4, we didn't target enterprise business apps.
Well,
As our primary audience, and it's amazing to hear a large company that sometimes might be conservative in their technology things, say, oh, we've moved way past evaluating. We're actually
the trusted, aspect of the new.
The out-of-browser capabilities and the ability to kind of reach outside the sandbox. We're just starting to see a lot of companies start to adopt that, and they like the fact that it's easy to deploy. They like the capabilities, and it's great having people come up to me during the event and say, hey, I want to show you a demo of something I built. And this is not just sort of like a little simple thing. These are big apps that people have built. And I think Loic on stage with Seismic, that's not just a client for listening to Twitter or Facebook. He's built a whole ecosystem around that. And likewise, I think the eBay app that's going to go live shortly, is a great example of a really rich app that is going to be touched by millions of people. And so, that's the thing that's most gratifying here. And I think, it's still early. It's only been a couple hours since the keynote, but I think
Sure.
the feedback on the phone work that we showed.
Let's pin down a couple of things. I detected a slight messaging, the lack of some words around the phone implementation. Is that Silverlight 4?
That's a good question. No, it is Silverlight. So it isn't Silverlight Lite or Silverlight something else.
Well,
it is
you
Silverlight.
said that on stage, but
Yeah, it's we right now the bits that we ship today have all of the features of Silverlight 3 and about half the features of Silverlight 4 already in it. And so once Silverlight 4 ships, we'll then go ahead and obviously put the rest of the features in.
So you mean in a month we'll see an upgrade to the phone?
It probably won't be in a month, but it won't be too far off.
But you're not really committing to when the phone's going to be shipping anyway, right?
We're not right now committing to when the phone ships, but certainly with each update of the phone, it'll have the most recent version of Silverlight.
And is Silverlight used in the marketplace?
The marketplace app, I'm not actually sure if it uses Silverlight or not. You can certainly put Silverlight apps as well as XNA apps in the marketplace. In fact, that's the only type of app you can put in the marketplace. In terms of the video we showed, I don't know exactly what the marketplace team used to build that, but they might have used Silverlight. I'm not 100% sure. Certainly, some of the applets that are included are built with Silverlight, and pretty much all of every app that we showed today in the keynote, with the exception of the games, was all Silverlight. So the Netflix app, the Associated Press app, the Diary app, Foursquare, Seismic, Shazam, Major League Soccer, the Canon demo, and the Marionette app. Those were all built in Silverlight.
So why is there this sort of fork between XNA and Silverlight? What's that about?
I wouldn't say it's a fork. You can use the same language. XNA is built on .NET, so you can use C#, or you'll be able to use VB for both of them. The kind of the UI mechanics of a game, in particular, kind of a high performance 3D game, are typically different than what an application has. It's much more about being able to create composite assets and be able to kind of quickly draw them to the screen. And you will see the ability to have apps that use both Silverlight and XNA UI within them in the not too distant future. But there's a huge ecosystem built up around XNA and likewise around Silverlight. And so we want to make sure both work great. And we typically think it's a fairly straightforward decision as to whether you use one or the other. If you're building an app, it's Silverlight. If it's a casual game, then you could write it in either Silverlight or XNA.
Can you load one into the other?
Not with today's build, but that is something that will enable in the near future. And so you could have some UI built with Silverlight, some with XNA.
So you for the free apps, the development apps that you're releasing today, that Expression and Visual Studio, you can build in one and then move it to the other project, right?
Yeah, both. So we announced today that we're shipping Visual Studio 2010 for Windows Phone development Express for free, and then also Expression Blend for phone also for free. And that's not just for today, but free forever. And what's nice about them is one's more focused on developers, one's more focused on both designers and what we call interactive developers. They share the same project system though. So if you create a project in one, you can open the other, and vice versa, and you can actually have both tools open and working in the same project.
And they'll stay synced.
Yeah.
And they don't go out of sync in one direction.
No. You can even have them both in the same source control project, and you can even have both literally opening the same project at the same time and just flip between them. So they've really been designed to kind of work well together. And the nice thing is, I think people, based on the reactions of the audience, were pretty pumped up after seeing my coding demo and then John's Blend demo. And I think we got credibility immediately after that of like, okay, these are the richest mobile development tools out there, and then be able to announce, oh, by the way, we're making them free, I think took a lot of people by surprise.
All right, so that's a good lead into this line of questioning, and you may consult your attorney if you'd like. I don't know if it was actually shown, but I was shown the night before the demo at PDC. I think Brian Goldfarb showed me the ability to be able to create something using the IIS media server. This was the new build of it, or at least it was new at the time, and be able to click a checkbox and be able to send it to the iPhone. It seems to me, based on the fact that you've released these incredibly powerful tools, that you have an opportunity to get at the head of the development chain for applications that not only will run on the Windows phone system, but also on the iPhone. There's a fair amount of black helicopter strategy that would have to be discussed in order to figure out how you would get the UI to come over, not just the ability to be able to push video. But in general, I mean, you showed Netflix, you showed applications that export video. Does it seem interesting to you to do something? I mean, the analogy would be what Adobe has done in announcing, I don't know if they've actually shipped anything, but announcing basically a recompiler or a converter for creating Flash apps and then moving them over to the iPhone. Of course, they have to, because Apple won't put their runtime, and as far as I know, they won't put your runtime on either. on the iPhone. Is that true? Number one.
Well, there's a couple different aspects. I mean, one is that we showed it at the PDC last November, and that we'll ship later this year, is the ability for our streaming server to basically stream in a format that the iPhone natively consumes. And so that means you could build a web page with a video tag on the iPhone, point it at a URL on our server, and we can automatically, it's called transmuxing, our smooth streaming video format to the one that plays in the Apple player. And so you can get a very seamless video player right in your web page. If you go to www.is.net/iPhone with your iPhone today, you can try it out and actually see it working. And what's nice about that is it doesn't require any custom software to be installed on the iPhone. It just works out of the box.
It leverages the H.264.
Yeah, both the H.264 codec and then also the built-in streaming support that Apple supports. And so so you'll definitely see us continue to ship that, and that means that you can encode your streams once, play them on a Mac, PC, using Silverlight on the desktop. You can play it on an iPhone, and obviously, like we showed in the keynote today, you can play it on a Windows Phone 7 device. We also today shipped Silverlight for Symbian, which is for Nokia-based devices, and so you can also stream that to Nokia phones.
Well, I find that less interesting than other possible ports like Android.
It's nice to ship bits, so those bits are available for download now, and so you can use them. In terms of say iPhone specific,
in terms of like a UI recompiler,
I think it's still a little early in the mobile space. I think one of the things that would be interesting to see, and I think we showed this a lot today, and I think Apple's shown it successfully in the past, is especially for a consumer device, having a UI that performs consistently with a consistent set of metaphors is important. And I think Joe really demonstrated that in his talks and the apps that we showed, where they look the same, they feel the same. And specifically with something like Windows Phone 7, there's just a notion of motion and fluidity that, if you look at other phones, you can look at previous versions of Windows Phone in particular, but you look at Android, you look at other devices, they don't work that way. And likewise, I think the iPhone's been very successful in terms of having a common set of controls and metaphors to program against. And we'll have to see whether or not, if you have an app that looks different than the rest of that, you can certainly port it, but it'd be interesting to see kind of what consumers think about that. Forget app stores and things like that, but just sort of, if it feels out of place, do people care about it? There is a way today on the iPhone to use a product called MonoTouch that Novell builds, where you can use .NET for all your logic, and then they support the ability to have to use the standard Apple controls and their standard interface.
Miguel's project.
Yeah, Miguel's project. And so we've seen a lot of customers be very successful with that. And so certainly with the announcements we've made today, you could absolutely reuse the same logic of your app in the iPhone and Windows Phone 7 and have different skinned. Right now we don't have any plans or anything to announce in terms of Silverlight running on that particular device. Instead we're spending all of our time really focusing, not all of it, but really focusing hard on how do we enable you to build these kind of next generation Windows Phone apps that really take advantage of a lot of the new interface and the hardware acceleration that we showed off. And if other people, like Miguel's project, want to be able to enable that kind of portability, that's great.
But there wouldn't be any kind of a plug-in into Visual Studio, which would allow you to take advantage of all the work that you've done in terms of a Silverlight development environment.
Well, we certainly have our plug-in that works for both Windows Phone 7 and Nokia devices. We don't right now have any plugins or plans that we've announced in terms of others, but certainly Visual Studio itself is very pluggable, so anyone could build that plugin.
Right.
But right now, in terms of what we're shipping this week, it's focused very much on Windows Phone 7.
Forgive me if I've misremembered this, but isn't there an Eclipse plugin as well?
Yeah, there's a full Eclipse tooling support for Silverlight that another company's done, and it's free. And I think it works both on the PC and the Mac. And so you get standard, I think it's a design surface, IntelliSense, and debugging support, all with Silverlight. So yeah, so certainly we're not making any statement around you need to exclusively use VS.
Sure. But why not? Since it's free and extremely powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love everyone to say I just want to use VS,
But it doesn't run on the Mac, right? That's only a Windows.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, Visual Studio today, or Visual Studio only works on Windows.
Any plans for Visual Studio built on Silverlight?
No, not right now. The new VS 2010 is built on WPF, which is sort of Silverlight's big brother, so to speak, and shares the same programming model as Silverlight. And we're getting really great feedback now on the VS 2010 RC. We'll be shipping that next month, and so that's allowed us to do a lot more within the IDE. We don't have any plans to rebuild VS on top of Silverlight. We're pretty happy with the version we have that works on top of WPF. And the nice thing is because the code between Silverlight and WPF is highly portable, we are able to move features around that way. But in terms of what VS 2010 supports, it's a pretty rich app that really takes full advantage of WPF.
Well, at the PDC, we had a lunch with Ray and Bob, in which someone asked the question about why don't you rename WPF? And Ray, sort of under his breath, said, "Sure, just call it Silverlight." And Bob looked at him like, this might be a little soon for that. Was the kind of expression, but I think that it speaks to how far you call WPF the big brother, but increasingly it's difficult to tell where one leaves off and the other begins, and what you really have with Silverlight increasingly is a web operating system. So
it's certainly our when we first announced Silverlight, kind of the positioning of it, and then also just the technical details of it, we kind of wanted to make sure it wasn't different than WPF. It was going to be a subset of WPF, but we wanted to make sure it wasn't a different subset. And each release of both WPF and Silverlight, we've any new feature we added into Silverlight, we made sure it was in WPF, and likewise, new features we had in WPF, we brought into Silverlight. And so you have definitely seen these kind of technically converge, which is a good thing. And
when you add the phone into the mix, and when you bring those two up, the phone and the Windows and Mac Silverlight versions up to the same code, not the same code, but effectively Silverlight 4, as you say, will happen shortly. That's going to tend to, again, start to minimize the differences between an OS that's designed for the desktop and the much broader audience that's now emerging.
Yeah, and I think Loic kind of really, what he's doing with Seismic is just a great example of that, where at the end of the day, it really is, for developers, the two things that get them excited are three things. One, can I build really exciting app, that's cool. Two, can I make money from that app, whether it's advertising, whether it's subscription, whether it's purchasing. And three, how easy or painful is it to build those? And I think Seismic's a great example of they're able to build incredibly cool apps really, really fast, reuse the code across multiple devices, and ultimately are going to be able to monetize that really well. And so, I think there's going to be a lot more success stories like Seismic that we're going to be able to point to in the months and years ahead. And it's great about attending Mix is you start to hear about these stories, some big, some small, and it's fun to see.
All right, so last question. If you had some time with Steve, and I'm sure you do from time to time, Steve Ballmer, what would you say to him about what's gone right here and how that might affect decisions made in the future? Like, for example, moving toward a version of Office on Silverlight, etc.
Well, I think I think the things that we showed today, I think the thing that when you step back and look at today, I think what we showed in the keynote, I think we showed to some extent, I think two or three things that were kind of profound. One was just how you can marshal a bunch of resources from around the company to really build something that is greater than the sum of the parts. In the sense of, we showed off, Zune integration. We showed off Silverlight integration with dev tools targeting our phone platform. We showed off Xbox integration so that the games could integrate with, Xbox avatars and gamer tags and achievement points. We showed off, Outlook and email access and calendaring access with a whole bunch of cool features on the phone. This is all about the phone. And and just you go down the litany of the number of scenarios that I think were unique that we were able to kind of connect in a way that consumers really like, and the number of kind of divisions and different groups that we were able to kind of collaborate on to build this kind of experience. I think that is it might look easy sometimes, but getting that many teams all aligned around a common vision and something that consumers really love. I think is a great testament. And I think the other thing that I'd say that I feel like went really well is just people were excited. A number of people told me I want that phone. It's pretty cool. And I think the work that the Windows Phone team's done over the last year, some of the work that my team's helped with in terms of the Silverlight and the tooling front, it's kind of fun to feel like we're really pushing the envelope in terms of not just what we've done in the past, but more importantly, from the phone industry in general. And there's still a lot more work to do. I definitely would not call it done, but it's exciting to be able to ship the tools today and put them in, hopefully millions of developers' hands and see what they build with it. Because I think there's a lot of power there. There's a lot of interconnected scenarios that provide huge opportunities for developers everywhere to light up. And I think consumers are going to love it.
But you didn't answer my question about Silverlight Office.
The new version of Office 14.
It uses it a little bit. But
it does use Silverlight. Yeah.
Do you think that it would be good to say to Steve, we need to be more aggressive with this?
Well, in general, I'd say. I think the most important thing, and again, I think the thing that we showed a little bit today is how do you make sure you're consumer focused and scenario focused? Because ultimately, the things that get people excited, and frankly, the things that sell products are if you can demonstrate value and uniqueness and get people excited. And so, I selfishly think, hey, Silverlight lets you do that, and for a variety of cool scenarios. And
what would a scenario be around Office?
I think some of the things that they've done with the Office Web Companions in terms of light up, there's the PowerPoint support, or whether it's the word editing support. Ultimately, my mom or my sister doesn't really care what it's implemented in, but the fact that app is richer than what she might be able to see somewhere else, is compelling. I think likewise today, Joe, I think did a good job. We kind of went back and forth in rehearsals of how much, as he called it, the technology. In his segment, he really focused on the user experience. And, the user experience, users don't care what it's written in. They care that the motion is fluid. The UI is slick. There's no, jerkiness. It's just smooth, crystal clear, polished.
But the impact, the cumulative impact of seeing how those user experiences can be developed with an intuitive tool, that's very impressive, I think.
Yeah, and certainly the technology does matter, but the thing I think we've learned, and we're going to make sure we stay focused on is, okay, what's the end user value? What's the scenario that's really going to make people go, I want that? And to the extent which you use Silverlight to do that, or you use HTML, or you use Win32, or you use COBOL with pick whatever technology.
Yeah, I'm gonna bet more on the Silverlight than the COBOL. Right?
Yeah, certainly that's where we're investing. But
I want that COBOL phone.
Yeah, that'll sell well. But that's kind of really where we're focusing on is how do we just nail that scenario and really get the end users excited with it. I think that was the nice thing about today's demos. People more than just knowing like, ooh, smooth streaming is enabled on the phone with Silverlight. If you show Netflix and you say, oh wow, look, here's a prototype where I can do instant watch streaming. that's cool. I can do Foursquare. Okay, I can do that on other platforms. But look, the map is integrated directly within the application, and it's all seamless. I don't have to navigate. Or, the AP app in terms of gliding through, lists of data and seeing, the story with photographs in the background and Swivel 3D for the photos. That's the thing that I think gets people excited. And the fact that it's really easy to build all those things, and that all those apps were built in under 3 weeks. That's the thing that will get the developers here excited. But I think it's important to make sure you keep the consumer first and center whenever you're trying to build a client.
Well, you did a nice job of summarizing the keynote today.
I tried, yeah.
Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, Steve.